Okay, welcome everybody. Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abridged code of Jewish law. Siman Nun Beis, chapter 52. Chapter 52, and we're up to number 11. Number 11, chapter 52. Okay, excuse me. All right, number 11. Shkeidim Amorim, bitter almonds. I guess there's different types of almonds, so there's a bitter variety. Shehem Ketanim. Now, when they're small, these bitter almonds, they're picked early, that type, just ikachilosam here clipper. Then the main thing that they're picked for is to eat the husk. She'ena mara, which is not bitter. And not only that's the main reason, that's the main thing to eat when they're picked, but well, das kein noitimaisom. That was the intent from which they were planted. Therefore, mavarach aleihem brei pre eitz. You make brei pre eitz on them. Shem gedolim, but once they grow large, shas ikachilo hu mash b'fnim. Now the main purpose, the main eating, is what's inside the husk. Then v'humar, but the nut is bitter. This type of nut is too bitter, so it's can't really eat it like that. It's too bitter to eat comfortably. So therefore, im oichem kach, if you eat it like that, ein mavarach klal, you don't make a bracha at all. You don't make a bracha at all if you eat it when it's so bitter. However, im mitkan or, if you literally fix it by roasting it on fire. So this nut, if you roast it on the fire, then that takes away the bitterness, becomes edible. Or some other technique, some other way to improve the flavor. Kevin, the prinyan, since they are a fruit, the gamal das came noitim oison, and also when they're planted was with the intention that if you let it grow big and you roast it or whatever, you could eat it. The mavarach aleim brain eitz. Okay, for those just joined us, chapter 52, number 10, we're in the middle. So this is a type of fruit that it can't be eaten like that. Shkeidim hamachupim b'tzukim. And if you have sugar-coated almonds, even though the sugar is greater than the amount of almond, nevertheless we make the bracha brei pri eitz. Now the calamus is some type of plant. It's not commonly eaten. Grows in like swampy, wet areas. When it's covered in sugar, it's sugar coated. We just say shehakal ki a calamus ain't a peri, because this calamus, whatever happens to be, is not actually a fruit. People don't really eat it. Okay, number 12. You have fruit that they didn't ripen properly all the way on a tree. So then afila bishlam or tignam and then even if you cook it or fry it in honey or something, commercial derech, as that's what you do with not ripe fruit. The tagim perish nigma dvashel psuka, or to unripe fruit, you do them, you fry them in honey or sugar. Mavarach shehakal. You make shehakal because they're not ripe enough to eat. Right? The only way you can eat them, because they're so unripe, is the fact that they're cooked in sugar or something like that. That's what makes it edible. So they become shehakal. Ach ala esrog. The exception to this is the esrog, where even metugim devasha b'tzukah, if you fry it in honey or sugar, yesh levarach brei pri eitz, you still make the bracha brei pri ha'etz. So there are a few reasons for this. It's because the esrog is how you eat it. Essentially, you make a jelly. So a lot of people make a brei pri eitz like an esrog jelly. So that's okay. 13. Noivlois.
Oh.
Right. So Nivlois is a different fruit that it's sun damaged on the tree. When perish nisru min hachoim, they're scorched literally, but it doesn't have to be scorched all the way. But in other words, they're sun damaged. V'navla ilon koidim shisbashel, and they withered and they fell off the tree. They landed on the ground before they were ripened. So kimmich shehud havash in is considered ruined. It's like a waste product. So therefore, aim avarachim alav. You don't make a bracha on them. It's not a food. It's a waste product.
Right.
Shehakol. Sorry, you do make a bracha. You don't make any bracha. You don't say ha'etz on it, but you do say shehakol. Similarly, has she'ipsha, bread that is spoiled. I know exactly bread spoils. We're not talking about moldy, but somehow it spoils. But tavshish in this kalka b'tzas, or some type of cooked dish that's a little bit spoiled. B'varachim leim shehakol. You say shehakol. In this kalkul gummy, but it's totally spoiled. It's rotten. It's gone rancid. To the point it's not really edible. A person under normal circumstances would not eat this. You don't make any bracha. Similarly, if you have totally fermented vinegar, to the point where he says in the brackets, if you put on the ground, it's going to bubble. You don't make a bracha on this at all. And if he mixed it with water until it's technically drinkable, then you make shehakol. So Shem shall bless us that we never have to eat rotten food. That Pastor Shalom saw us to eat rotten food. There's no bracha when it's totally rotten. Yudalad.
There's a comedian, he says, if you have sour cream and it goes bad, does it make it better?
I see. So then he goes sweet when it's bad, huh? The sour cream? Yeah. All right. Now that's normal fruit. So so for example, we spoke about, let's just say an apple. The apple got scorched by the sun. It fell off the tree. It's on the ground. It's not really in good shape. So you say shehakol and not ha'etz, because the normal way to eat an apple is you let it ripen properly on the tree, and you eat it fresh how it is. Okay, welcome those who joined us. Chapter 52, number 14. So those fruits lose the bracha of eitz, become shehakol, because they're ruined a little bit. However, in 14 we give an exception. There are certain types of fruit that this is normal way to eat it. You never let them ripen while on the tree. But rather after you pick them from the tree, you put them in hay or straw and the like. And through this process, that's how they ripen. Since this is the normal way to prepare that type of fruit for eating, you make them eights, right? So those type of fruit would be good. I mean, I can't offhand think of a fruit that's what we do, but maybe someone here does. But there's certain types of fruit that's how they eat. 15. There's some type of fruit that you can't eat at all. It's just the sap that's inside the seeds. The crime kalinus. They're called kalinus. And it's a gilda rose. I got to tell you, looking up the English, the gilda rose did not help me any better than the Hebrew word kalinus. But some type of fruit where nothing is edible, only the sap. The fruit themselves is not edible. But rather people suck on the fruit and they suck out the sap, the zoikim clippus, and then they throw away the rest, the peels. Now what they do is they say shahakal on what they suck out, because essentially they're drinking juice. Because the main the main part of this food is the liquid that comes out. So it can't be considered a fruit at all. So we did learn before a fruit that could be eaten as a fruit, but it's generally grown for its juice. Then its juice would be ha'etz. We gave an example of olive oil, right? You can eat olives, but the main purpose or the main use of olives is the oil. So if someone drank a glass of olive oil, I'm not sure you'd want to, but in theory, if you did, you would make Retiree eights, right? And there's some people who say it's about oranges, right? They say that the varieties of oranges that are grown for fruit juice, over majority of them are used for juice and not for much more than eating. So it makes some people. It's a bit of a dispute about it. So saying shahakal works according to all opinions, but there is a view that you would say it's on the orange juice. But that's when it actually is a fruit. And the main way to eat it is the juice. Over here, there is no fruit. This particular Gilda rose, whatever the fruit is, I can't say I've ever seen one. It is there is no fruit. Yes, David, you had a question.
It's almost similar to pomegranates because it's just the juice. You're not really eating the
No,
nut.
we eat the seeds. Eat the seeds. So there is something there.
But a lot of people just spit out the seeds. They're just taking the juice out.
Okay, I mean you could, but so if you do that, that's your choice. But there is fruit to eat. I mean, there is something to eat in this fruit. This Gilda rose, I did a Google search to get a picture. It just looks like a regular rose. I'm not even sure. Well, maybe it's the bulb you suck. I'm not sure what it is. But there is no fruit. All there is the sap.
Rabbi,
Yes.
what about something like maple syrup?
So maple syrup is also not from a fruit. I mean, they take it out of the body of the tree itself.
Correct.
So it's going to be a shahakal. It's um yeah. If it came out of an actual fruit, something would be something different. That's besides by the time the maple syrup gets to your house, it's been a lot of other ingredients and it's added and various things. So whatever this fruit is, or if you get anything similar to it, it's shahako. Okay, 16. Chapter 52, number 16. Now, ein mevarchim Retiree eitz or Retiree dama, ela shenika b'miksa pri. You can only say Retiree eitz or Retiree dama if it's somewhat recognizable that you're eating this fruit or this vegetable, whatever it is. I will in this rasek, if it's totally mushed, it's gone in the blender, and all you have is mush. It is no longer recognizable what it is. So it's not recognizable at all what it is. If you're going, for example, he says lekpa, some type of jam that they made. They cooked plums and legumes together. And in the process, shiriskom the gumri, it's totally mashed. solidly mushed together, Kedoim and the like. The Mavarach Aleim Shehakal. You say Shehakal. So where you have this quite commonly today, things like the fruit leather. I mean, a lot of the fruit leather is just confectionery, it's just candy, but they do have some that are just dried fruit. So in theory, it would be ha'etz, but they've dried it and they've pressed it, and you just get like a just a piece of, looks like a strip or something. You can't recognize any fruit pieces. If it didn't say strawberry whatever on the package, there's no way visually you could tell the strawberry. So then you say shahakal, even though it's like 95% just strawberry, the ingredients or whatever it is. So it would be an example. So potato chips, which most potato chips are a slice of potato, and you can recognize it as a slice of potato. That's what sliced potatoes look like. So you would say hadoma. But things like, let's say, Pringles, where they've mushed it, it's it's like using potato starch. It's like this is why the some of the Pesach crackers taste like Pringles. You get, they look like crackers, but it tastes like Pringles because they're the same thing. They're the same sort of mush that they make. Yeah, Mordechai.
I think Black Forest made out of prunes.
Black Forest.
The prune,
Yeah.
Black Var is made out of prunes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's what it says. They cooked plums. Yeah, prunes. All right. Well, prunes are just dried plums. So guess some people they dry it first, but when you can't recognize it at all. So if you have a soup, a vegetable soup, and there's big chunks of vegetable, they're recognizable as a vegetable, you can make a dominant vegetable. But if it's all mushed in, sometimes the soups are mushed up and you can't tell what's in it. Then it's shahakal. So we make shahakal whenever we can't recognize what it is. With the evid, after the fact, if a person made ha'etz, it was all mashed up fruit, and he said ha'etz, or hadama mashed up, yotze is fulfilled his obligation. He doesn't have to make another bracha. Now, there's an exception, right? Every rule we have, we seem to have an exception to the rule. So the general rule is, once it's mush and you can't recognize what it is, the bracha becomes shahakal. The exception is, if this is the way that this food is eaten, through mashing. Now, today, I mean, potatoes, we eat potato chips, we eat whole potatoes, we eat fries, we eat kinds of things. But let's just say theoretically, the way people ate potatoes was mashed potato. That was the main way. And 99% of people only ate mashed potato and not in any other way. Then, even though it's totally mushed, then the brach would be a dom. That would be because that's how you eat it. That's how you eat it, right? So summarize. Normally, if a food is totally mushed and mashed, then we can't tell what it is. That we loses its eitz or a dom, it becomes shahakal. But if that's the way it's normally eaten, then we goes back to Adam.
Rabbi, where does popcorn fit in then?
So the type of corn that actually pops, because not all corn does. Tried it actually. You can put a whole pack, lots and lots of corn, and about 2 of them pop when it's just regular corn. But the corn that pops. One day with the kids, we did another experiment. We got the popcorn when it was still on the cob, and we put it on the barbecue and closed the barbecue to see what would happen. It was one of our summer afternoon activities one day, and most of it popped. So that type, that's how it's eaten. It's eaten popped, so it becomes hadama. That's the way to eat that variety of corn. All right. So we're
Rabbi,
going to discuss. Yeah. Sorry.
there were, back in the day, there were two, no, I think Yisrael has a question. They can go first.
You still have a question? You're on mute.
You answered my question. Hadama was the answer you gave me, which I fully.
Okay. So, David, yeah, a question still?
Okay, so I think they answered the question.
Yeah, so that we
Okay,
answer
he
that
says,
question.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, I used to do Masiba Shabbos for children for many years in North Miami Beach. So I became very familiar with the different brachos and the different opinions. So in the olden days, there were two major books that had come out, Rabbi Wenger, and there was another one, I think, maybe by Lubavitch. Rabbi Wenger was also Lubavitch. So Bekitzer, there were two different opinions on corn chips. One said you say Hadama because you could actually see pieces of the corn in the Adama, in the chip.
Yeah.
And one said you say Shakol because you cannot see pieces of the corn in the chip. So I'm not asking you for Pesach. I'm just
Yeah. I think with
bringing
the
it to
corn
your
chips,
attention
the other issue
that
is
there was a
again that
very
variety of corn that they use, the people who push the hadama is because that's how you eat that type of corn. That's how you eat that variety of corn. You know, you make it into chips or the other things, not tacos. You know, that's how you eat it. It's not the type that's eaten as corn on the cob. It's a different variety. So therefore that's how you eat it. So it should be a dama. Yeah, and then as you say, then there's a a lot of these foods is not so simple, and could be even half the people who say shahakol say quite possibly it's hadama. But as we've learned, if it is shahakol and you say hadama, it doesn't help you after the fact. But if it's hadama, you said shahakol after the fact, it helps you. So it's always a lot of the times when we say shahakol, it's not necessarily because we're convinced it's shahakol, but more because of since this degree of doubt, this general all-inclusive bracha saves us. So as we're going to see, we're going to discuss rice shortly, right? And a lot of people say shahakol on rice. Now, although there is a view that the bracha is shahakol, but many of the people who practically say shahakol, it's not because they're convinced that the rice is shahakol. It's just because it could be mezainis, it could be hadama, it could be we don't know. So by saying shahakol, at least after the fact, we're taken care of. So that's how it goes. Now, one thing to bear in mind that if a person roasted a kernel of grain, so even though we said grain, it can be hamotzi or if you make a dough, it can be hamotzi or mezainis. But if you just roasted the grain, wheat, barley, spelt, oats, rye, it's brei priyadama. If you eat a whole roasted grain. It's only once you start processing, then it becomes a mezainis. So the question is, what about rice and millet? Like a corn or other types of things. If you make a flour, oides v'doichen shnis bashlo. You have millet and rice that were cooked. So imloi nismachel, if they were not crushed. So you have grains of rice, eating cooked grains of rice. You make brei priyadam. Vim nismachel, if they were crushed. Now this is even. Now here the question is, what does crushing mean? In other words, if you just move the husk Like for example, when we eat white rice, just the husk is removed. So it could be that's already crushing. So if you crush it, which is possibly even turning into white rice, or if you grind them and made bread from the flour, then we have a difference between millet and rice. What's the difference? Now, theoretically, you make Brayme Mazonis on oires. Now, we normally translate it as in modern Hebrew, that's rice. But the problem is, we have a doubt. Im oires he horas v'doichen rice, or the hipuch. Is oires what we call oires? In other words, in the Talmud, when they spoke about oires, which one is millet, which one is rice? It's actually not clear, although in the modern Hebrew we have the words that we use, but we're not sure which one the Talmud says. So possibly rice made into a goo, made into a dough should be shahakal. Possibly it should be mazonis, depending which one is the real rice. Right? So we have this issue. Therefore, a person should not eat crushed rice or millet unless it's during a meal. Okay, I'll also add another factor to over here. Another factor over here is that even the view that says that the mazonis was the rice, they were probably speaking about the variety of rice that today we call sushi rice. That's what many poskim say, because it clings. So even when you when you remove the husk, you partly grind it, it sticks together like a mazonis type thing. But the type of rice that you use, let's say, to make fried rice, which they're individual grains, they don't really squash together, then even according to views mazonis, it might be hadama anyway. So there's another factor that we throw in. What type of rice did they eat in those days in that part of the world? So seemingly from the description, it was what we call sushi rice. But anyway, so in the ideal world, if you can have rice, you can have Chinese food. You should wash. Make hamaitzi, and you have your fried rice and your good chow mein and everything else that there is, and enjoy it. And there's no doubt on the brachas. What we're not going to mention here.
You can make hamaitzi. You're saying if you wash a Chinese meal,
you wash and you have a piece of bread.
Oh, you have a piece of bread. You're not making hamaitzi on the rice.
No, not on the rice. No. Sorry if I didn't say clearly what I meant. No. Yeah. So thank you. If I wasn't clear, it's good to clarify that. I'm just going to mute everyone because of background noise. And if you have a question, please feel free to unmute. But you should wash, have some bread, and eat as part of a Suda. What we're not going to mention here, but it'll be the next case. Now, it could be, let's say, for an example, you're at a kiddush. You're not washing for a maitzi, but there's a whole bunch of different food, including some Chinese food over there. With the rice or sushi or something like that. So you could make a mazonis on a cracker. Can make hadama on whatever else is there, and shahakol on whatever else is there. And as you're making all these brachas, have in mind the rice food as well. And then you've made all the brachas on something that's certainly that bracha, and whichever one is meant to be, the rice gets included. So that's option number 2, or possibly even option number 1, depending on what's more practical. So again, if you go to the Chinese, you're getting the Chinese takeout, the Chinese meal. Does you have a question?
Yes, I do. I have a couple.
Yes.
Number one, I don't eat, I'm not allowed to eat wheat gluten. So I've been getting this, it's kosher, cauliflower crust pizza. Now, I'm not sure whether that should be considered hakol or what. I mean, because the cauliflower in it is not recognizable as
Yeah,
cauliflower.
yes, it's gonna be shehakol.
Another question. Now I have to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. So the thing is, I mean, it was always my understanding, maybe it was wrong, that fruit, the blessing of the free hay, it takes precedence and it would cover a dama. But if I have several things and not necessarily eating in order like that, do I have to make separate barachot on them and a piece of protein of fish, like that would be a coal, I would imagine. But but the other thing, the Adama or the 3 how would that work? Would I have to make
So you
separate
normally say the ha'etz first, but then you have to say Adam on something as
You
well.
have grapes, you have a dish with grapes and melon.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So sorry, I just why I answered, I'd put on mute and then come back after this because of the
I'm
background noise.
asking, I was just asking.
Yeah, yeah. But I think there's two things. So if you had multiple things that were eights and multiple things that were hadama, so you only need to make one ha'etz and one hadama, and that covers all the things that are out that have that bracha. And then I wasn't quite sure because there was a bit of background, a bit of feedback, but I think you asked, does ha'etz cover hadama as well? Which the answer is no. If you have some food that's ha'etz, some food that's hadama, you need to make a ha'etz on that food and hadama on that food. Yeah, I'm gonna unmute. There's still more. Did I answer it, or there's still more question? Well, yeah. Is it clarified, or do you want to ask more? All right. So we'll keep going.
Rabbi, just
Um,
while we're talking about things like rice,
yeah.
what about hydroponic tomatoes, for example?
So hydroponics also get into a whole discussion whether it becomes shahakal because it wasn't in the ground. That's one view. One view is that hydroponics are always shahakal. Another view is we look at the species. We're not so concerned where this particular one happened to grow. So it's not so clear. The big issue, they used to have, before they gave away Gaza, most of the kosher lettuce that was sold in the Jewish market was from Gush Katif, it was all hydroponic. So the Rabbanan again the hechsher to this said you say shahakal, but it's not unanimous. It's not unanimous. So
the problem is that people were using that as at the Seder because it was so bug free. They said, "Oh, this is wonderful for the Seder," but it
okay,
wasn't.
well, if there were people that said hadama, it wasn't a problem. Well, that's not necessarily the problem. Not for the Mara is not a problem. For the karpas to be a problem. So I was saying about the rice, I was saying if you have Chinese food, it could be if you ordered a bunch of different dishes, sometimes amongst the family, you go out and you order several different dishes and everyone takes a bit of each one and shares. So there's something that's mazonis and something that's hadama and something that's shahakal. And you can make all the brachas and the rice just gets included. So you don't necessarily get stuck with the bracha. So that is so like I said, once it's ground, it probably is shahakal. If we presume again, it's not clear the oires and doichen that I mentioned in the Talmud. It's not clear the exact identity, but presuming that rice is what we think is rice, then once it gets ground, it becomes shahakal. And there is a view that once you even take off the husk, that's considered partly ground. So white rice, as opposed to brown rice, according to that view, would already become shahakal. So to avoid the issues, we said either you eat it in a meal that you say hamotzi, or you make brachos on other foods. Now, b'shas chak, right? Jain loy pas. There's no bread to eat with these food, and there's no other foods, right? Your lunch is boiled rice. That's what you have to eat. There's nothing else to make a bracha on. You're not home. That's what you can have. So what do? So mavarach bein ala iris bein la rice shehakol. He says both the millet and the rice, when they're crushed or made into a bread, you say shehakol ul acharein brain nefashos, and you break brain nefashos after. So the question is, so for sure once it's ground, for sure you do that. It's all opinions. The question is, if we have fried rice from white rice with just the husk, is that considered ground or not? So in Chabad generally they say shehakol on rice as is, but there are many people who will still say hadama because not necessarily is removing the husk considered grounding. So it's something that's not clear. So that's why I say it's much, best thing is to try and eat some other food. So in Romania, between the wars, apparently there was a wheat shortage. There was a lot of rice and there was a wheat shortage. So people used to eat rice bread. But Shabbos, to make hamotzi, they used to spend extra money and splurge and get regular hamotzi bread. So they used to, in Poland, they used to make a joke about Jews from Romania. It sounds better in Yiddish, but the joke is, they used to say, if you ask the Romanian child, what's the bracha on bread? He'll ask you, it depends, Shabbos or a weekday, because Shabbos is always shehakol, and sorry, Shabbos was a motzi, and during the week it was shehakol, so it rhymes in Yiddish, so it sounds a bit cuter, but that's what used to happen. So a lot of people are discovering with gluten-free and the various things. So some people it's just become a trend, but a lot of Ashkenazim in particular do have some type of intolerance or worse to different types of gluten. And the other thing is, if you live out of town, a lot of these gluten products are the kosher ones are made and they sell them to supermarket chains as gluten-free food, not as a kosher food. I was used to really like, when I was living in Parramatta in Australia, there really wasn't a lot of kosher food in the immediate area. But they used to have these Holy Yisrael chocolate wafers that they sold in the health food section because they were gluten-free. And I just had this particular affinity to eating good chocolate from the health food section. It made me feel much less guilty about eating it. I could eat double because it was healthy, right? So there is a lot of gluten-free food and different things available, more than there was. And for some people, that's where you get your kosher food, right? And the same company made regular cookies, gluten-free, and they were look, I wouldn't say exactly they passed for a gluten-free, but as regular cookies, but they weren't bad. And that was the kosher cookies you get in the local supermarket. So all of these things ends up being shehakol. It's for those who live in Florida. My son, his mother-in-law has a gluten-free bakery. It's Dickler's, I think it's called. So anyway, I'm not doing an advertisement for it. Well, maybe I should. I'll get a commission. But the point was, at the chasna, they served that all the desserts came from the bakery, and I had no idea. I thought it was regular desserts, and even when I tasted it, it fooled me. So there I was. I made all these brachas of atala, not all these, just one. I made a mezainis. I'm eating all this food, and it's really with shehakol. So that's it's one thing we have to bear in mind. Yes, David.
I wrote a song about rice. I'm not going to sing it for you, but I don't know if I can share the lyrics.
Please. You gonna put it in chat for everyone there? Thank you.
Put on share. I don't know if everybody's able to see that.
Yeah.
Should I say the, should I say the words?
Yeah, hold on.
Shiloh on the right. This is to the tune of wouldn't it be nice by Shiloh on the right.
Sing it, sing it.
My voice is shot.
Shiloh on the rice.
Is it Mizonos? Maybe it's a Hadama. Perhaps I should make a shakol. Maybe I should just wash for a challah. I'm not quite sure what bracha is better. Maybe I should make them all together. The Shiloh on the right. What is the bracha? Really haven't got a clue. Is it a whole with puff grain? Actually, I really, I'm not quite sure what was better. All together, Shiloh on the race. If I ask the Rav, the this will be taboo. Maybe then I'll serve rice cakes at my next barbecue. A blessing with feeling, or it would be like stealing a Shiloh on the rice. I'm not quite sure what bracha is better. Maybe I should make them all together, a Shiloh on the rice. There it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
I'll undo the sharing.
So that sums it up. That's our summary. All right. So I'll pass to us kitness. Now, bread that's made from type of legumes. And he's got brackets, all these different types of bread they used to have in the day. Now, even if it's a place where that's the norm, that's the kind of bread they eat, we make shahakal. Now, din erev kamachim. Once we start getting to mixed, right? So there's some people. Now again, a lot of people who celiac and different things. What they do is they sometimes take different beans but they'll mix in for Shabbos. They'll mix in some oat flour in order to be able to make a motzi. So exactly how it works, we're going to have a different we've got to look in big Shulchan Aruch. It depends on a lot of factors. But the bottom line is, someone wants for it to work for a motzi, they have to be put in enough proper flour. Once you start having mixtures of different grains, so that's the question. Rice is a question, and millet is also a question. So as we said, if we can have it in a meal, we made a motzi. That solves all problems. If there's other foods around, we can make a mazonis, and we can make a hadama, and we can make a shahakal. So that also works. And if not, if you're stuck, we're going to end up making shahakal.
What about spelt? Isn't spelt a problem because you don't know what's spelt in English and what it is in Hebrew?
Spelt should be okay. Well, it's just straight spelt.
What about quinoa?
Well, quinoa's
It's a grain.
yeah, well, but it's not one of the 5 grains, so we don't have that problem. So if you can make a bread out of it, it's sure going to be shahak. I don't know if you can make bread out of quinoa. I haven't seen it, but you have the quinoa itself is done. But the question is, then you get the whole discussion. Some people eat it on Pesach, some people won't. Is kitnius, is not kitnius. All right. 18. On sugar, you say shahakal. So if you're just going to eat straight sugar, very good for you. By the spoonful, you say shahakal. Likewise, if you suck sugarcane stalks, right? It's it was something I used to see in New York a lot. So I think you have a lot of people from Jamaica and different things that live there, and so it's part of the culture. Definitely didn't see it in Australia, even though sugarcane grows everywhere. But didn't do it on no one. Anyway, you say shahakal. V'kain simmering licorice, like if you have cinnamon licorice plants, if you suck out the I think shikaisim boilim raktam, because you chew and you're only swallowing the taste. A polten ikan, and you spit out whatever you chewed up. You're not really actually eating. So therefore, mavarach shahakal, we say shahakal.
Some people say that it's a on chewing gum because you're not really swallowing it, you're just doing the taste.
Yeah, so there's a big shayla on that, whether you can make a bracha on taste. So the best thing about chewing gum would be to either say shakal on something or say shakal and bite off a little piece and swallow it. There is a dispute about the bracha on sugar. Now, practically everyone's going to say shakal. But there are some authorities that say that sugar should be pre-8 because sugar cane remains standing from year to year, and so even though practically speaking we're always going to say shahakal, but if someone by mistake said ha'etz or adama on the sugar, you don't have to make another bracha. People also make sugar from other vegetables. They make from beets, different things like that. It's shahakal, but if you said hadama on a beet sugar, then you would have fulfilled your obligation after the fact. Right, so Bundaberg up north of Australia, they tremendous amount of sugar cane grows there. Well, these did grow there. Most of it's knocked down for housing nowadays. But they make the Bundaberg rum. It's probably the most famous rum. Very good rum. Yeah, ever And what they sell here, actually, you may have seen, is the Bundaberg ginger beer. Also made over there. Sell it in America. They export it, import it here. All right. That is chapter 52.
Rabbi,
Yes.
there are different things made out of coconut, but coconut by itself, is that pre ha'etz or is that adama?
It's ha'etz. Coconut's ha'etz.
Okay. I thought maybe it was like, bananas, which are adama.
No, it's like a pomegranate.
Yeah. Thank you. And if there's sugar made out of it, that's
Yeah, so yeah, they make sugar out. That's what's gonna be shahakal. Because again, it's mushed.
And flour from coconut, which would be only made out of coconut, would it be mazonas or would it be hakol?
Flour is going to be shahakal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so coconut, when they have the actual pieces, like sometimes it's diced coconut, it's still recognizable it's coconut. So it's still going to retain its bracha, but once you make a flour or a sugar or something, then it becomes shahakal.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Siman Nun Gimel, chapter 53. Din Reitiv Amashka Shel Peiros V'Rakos. So this is Reitiv is sort of like a soup or a broth or a gravy. All those things are included in Reitiv. And the mashkas is, in this context, the juice. We'll call the juice of fruit and vegetables. Okay. Kol Peiros V'Rakos, all fruit and vegetables. Chatam mehem mashkim, that you squeezed out the juice. Mevarach la mashkim shahakal. You say shahakal on the juice that came out of it. So we're not talking about now you put it in a blender and you turned it into a shake. Talking about you extracted the juice now. The kind of ashes of in tomorrow, likewise, the honey. I mean, though in English I don't really call it a honey, but that comes out that like oozes out of dates. Ki ein mashke nikra pri, because no juice is called the actual fruit. Rak except hayayin b'shem zayis, wine and olive oil. Those two are called the fruit, the actual juice. So hayayin shechoshemoid, now wine which has tremendous significance. So it has instituted for it its own special, unique bracha, which is very often. The shemen zayis and olive oil, which is also significant. So im nahanemeno, if you have enjoyment, you get benefit out of drinking it. The inyan shil tzarich in a way that you need to make a bracha on it. Make very eights, because they're the fruit. But everything else, if you extract the juice, it becomes shahakal. Okay, number 2. Peirish ein darkam lebishel, fruit that are not normally cooked. El acham chaim, eat them raw. Then it goes like this: Im bishlam, if you cook them, mavarach al haroitev shahakal. You say shahakal on the broth. You know, this is talking about where you have the broth on its own. If you have it together with the fruit, then the fruit is the main thing. We're gonna make bread eights. So a compote, even though it's got some broth, for lack of a better word, but there's chunks of fruit in it. So you know it goes together with eights. But if you have the liquid itself from the cooked fruit, then it's shahakal. Our perish darken the yavshan blashlam, but a fruit who the way it's eaten, the norm is to cook it. You know, to dry and cook it. And that's what most people, that's how they have it. But and that's why that fruit is planted for, you know, to eat it like that. In then if you cook them in order to eat the fruit, the gam lishtois isaroitev, and also to drink the broth, then mavarach al roitev eights. You make a brefer eights on this broth. Even if you're not eating any of the fruit, you're just having the broth. And not only does it apply to fruit, same thing applies to legumes and vegetables. If it's a type of vegetable that's not eaten raw, you cook it, that's how you eat it. And you cook it in order to eat the actual fruit and to drink the broth that comes with it. But then if you're not eating the food, you would make a breifri adoma on it. That's why it's planted. Okay. Now this is different to extracting the juice. Here it got cooked with the fruit, as opposed to extracting the juice. And he says the difference between what I'm explaining now and what I said in number 1 is mishum dehasam ein darkum bekach. It's because when juice is extracted, you squeeze the fruit or vegetable. That's where it's not the usual way. This chayt is a peiros irakas leitzim mayhem to squeeze the fruit or vegetable to get their juice. And here it's a normal way is to cook it to get the broth out. So that's one difference. So let's say apples. Most apples are used for eating. So therefore, if you extract the juice from an apple, it becomes shahakal. But if something that what you do with it is to cook it and you have the broth, that's a different story. But yesh omrim. Now there are those that say there's an opinion. The reason is because when you cook it, the flavor of the actual fruit and vegetable is in this liquid much more than in the juice. But it's in the water which they cooked. It's much more than from the juice that comes out of them. So that's if the purpose was to eat both the fruit and the broth. Then we say a ha'etz or a hadama even on the broth itself. But if when you cook the vegetable, the purpose was solely for the vegetable, the fruit, not the broth. You weren't caring about it. You had no interest in it. Then, if you're not having that broth together with the fruit or vegetables, the shaises are right of vad, but you're only drinking the broth, then you say shahakal. Now, next twist on it, the imbishlam imbasa biyachad. If you cook the fruit or vegetables together with meat, right? You cooked it all together. You put in some oranges or something into, or you put lemons with the fish or something like that. Even if the purpose was for the broth as well, you wanted to create a nice gravy or broth to soften the meat and to make the meat tender to eat together with the meat. You always say shahakal on that gravy or broth. Why? Because the meat is the primary thing. Your intention, yeah, you put in all this other stuff, but why did you do that? To make the meat taste good. So we only say shahakal just on the meat. Let's squeeze in one more. Now fruit that till now
A minute,
we had
just on the meat, or are you making a shahakal just on the gravy?
Well, you're making shahakal on the meat anyway, but if you only happen to have gravy, you also say shahakal.
You're not having it with meat. You could be having just the gravy with a cookie dipped into it or something.
Yeah, so if you did that, you also say shahakal on the
gravy.
Dunk the cookie, you probably just say mizonos on the cookie, you wouldn't say anything. But if you drank some of the broth, you would still say shahakal because the main thing was for the meat.
You made a mizonos on the cookie. You don't have to say anything on the.
Not if you dunked it into gravy and it got like so it absorbed it.
Because it's really okay. Thank you.
No problems. All right, so I guess we'll finish up here for today. So wish everyone an incredible, wonderful week. And we'll see everyone next week. Mr. Hashem.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.